Hey, 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 hey. Welcome back to Branding Class. I'm Ryan Hamrick, and if you've been riding with us for the last 3 weeks, then you already know we are kind of diving in each week to the work that I've been doing in my day job as kind of the person doing all of the design things at Leander Independent School District, which is a big school district in Texas here. And we've been looking at all kinds of things from some of the design work that I was doing for the graduation programs that were just kind of all in their glory at the ceremonies a couple weeks ago, and to like last week we went through some of the mascots and stuff that I've been redesigning for a few of the campuses. We drew live a great eagle head for Canyon Ridge Middle School, and so today we are going to take a look at some letter things. We're going to be looking at some of the ways that I am thinking about trying to kind of tie a lot of these brands together for all these different schools by using some similar typography and lettering styles and stuff like that. So we're going to take a look at some of that here in just a second. Sound off in the chat if you guys have any questions while I'm going through this stuff. How's everybody doing? I got Sean here, got Kane. What's up, everybody? Thanks to you for helping out as well. Always, Jack. I appreciate you. Jack actually put some awesome screenshots in last week into the Discord channel for this class, branding class. And he's got the link up there in the top of the chat here on YouTube. So be sure to join that if you're not already part of that community, and we can kind of go back and forth on there. You can ask me questions in there as well, and we can just have a great time. So, all right, with no further ado, let's go ahead and bounce on over to Illustrator here. I'm going to be working in Illustrator again today, pretty much exclusively. And we're going to take a look at some of the things that I've been doing and playing with to try and get these type things in order here. So first of all, we've got this little character set that I've been working on. One thing that's important to note that was kind of like a jumping off point for me when I was thinking about the letter parts of these brands is that our district, at least in the athletic space, is a Nike district. So that means that all of the jerseys and helmets and all that good stuff is all going to be ordered from and branded by Nike. And so given that that's the case, I figured I would start with a font that is also a part of our district-wide brand kind of our branding guidelines or whatever, which is Futura. Awesome font, really solid bones of it. And so I figured I would start from there to try and create something that's similar and will look good alongside Futura for any district-wide branding things where we use it a lot to anything that is, kind of in the same place as some Nike branded things and things like that. So with that, I took Futura and I started to kind of modify it just slightly, really, to kind of make it a little bit more of like an aggressive athletic feel. And so, as you can see, I kind of just created the outlines from the font and then started to add these little like spurs up here. Actually, I don't know if it's called a spur. If anybody knows, I think it might only be a spur if it's in the middle of the font. Actually, I don't even know, or in the middle of the letter. But we've got these little ears here, almost like a little serif up there. And then on the insides of the letters and some of these counters and stuff, we kind of do the same thing, but in reverse. So we're causing this kind of cutout here so that anytime it is a light color on a darker background, those are going to simulate a little shadow, kind of these little shadow cuts out of there. So I went through the entire character set, just caps for now. A lot of these brands are going to be primarily set in all caps. So I may decide to flesh out the other characters down the road a little bit, but for now, this will get us started really well. So as you can see, got the whole character set here, A to Z, 0 to 9. And I don't know, there's some of them that I'm not totally wild about yet, and we may continue to play with them as we see how they work in action. But yeah, it's a great start. I went ahead and took these individual vector paths and copied them into glyphs 3, and just kind of threw together a very, very rudimentary font that I could use to like just not have to like drag and copy the vectors themselves into place every time. So the kerning is like not touched or anything, so I'm gonna have to like manually modify that as we go. But this guy here is actually set in that font that I made. So let's see. So we've got Leander here. I'm starting with that. That is the name of the school district itself, but it is also one of our high schools, one of our middle schools. There's Leander Middle School, Leander High School, and then a bunch of other ones too. They are, so that is one of the names of our schools and one of the ones that I'm working on right now. So we looked at the mascot lineup of some of the ones that I've done. This one actually right here is the Leander Lion. That will be their lion. Still kind of in development here, but that's where he stands right now. So we've got those colors, those great royal blue and red colors there. Super easy. Jack in chat says on the outside maybe a serif, inside an inkwell. I think that's what it's called. And definitely there's the inside things where there's a cut like that. It can often be called like an ink trap for sure. And you can do those. Like Futura actually has them built right into there. And we can see like in the ends, for instance, we can see that as it approaches this guy here, there's a little bit of an extra carve away there that provides a little more space in those kind of like tighter angles that makes it so that whenever you're printing or things like that with these types of fonts, that you don't get a really dark heavy spot right there where the ink can tend to like kind of pool up and create a really heavy spot. So a lot of fonts will have those things kind of cut out of there. M does it as well. Same with like the V there as well. So yeah, fun fact. Yeah, still, I think the jury is still out on whether that would be a spur or not. Definitely is a kind of serif, but since this is not a serif font, I don't know if you would actually call it that or not. So we'll do some research on that in between shows and figure it out. I'll do some follow up with you guys. But yeah, so this is the Leander Lion, and those are their colors, this red and royal blue. And so if I come back here, we can kind of start to play with this guy. So this is set in the font. I've not gotten creative yet with trying to name the font. I've just got it set as Leander School font. Great. Okay, so we've got this guy here, and I want to play around with some graphic styles today in the appearance panel. I've been kind of playing around with that a lot, in a lot of ways for the first time. Like I've been in the appearance panel a lot and kind of played around with those, but I've only more recently found out just the extreme depth that you can go with the graphic styles and like saving those things, and the layers upon layers that you can do in the appearance panel to really kind of set up these crazy styles. And I know that's not new for anybody who plays with those things, but as a guy who's usually hired to just do like a essentially vector logo type or something like that, and not dive super deep into the styling and stuff or whatever, but provide like the core vector artwork for a brand. I've not spent a ton of time in there, so this has been kind of a fun cause for doing that. So if I go into the appearance panel, I do want to bring open a couple of things here. So I've got actually over in, let's see, this guy here, we can see that I've been playing around a little bit with this same name, Leander. So I've got it spaced out the way I want. And then I've been playing around with some crazy styles here to really see what the best lockup is for kind of laying this out for brand things, and like, you know, in conjunction with the mascot and all that good stuff. So that's one style. Let's see. I've got a bunch of other ones saved in here, just from some that I was finding online and playing around with. So let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this guy over here, so I can apply a different one there. Let's see. Yeah, that one's pretty cool. So this one, you can see it's got the warp built into there in the arch. And if you go into the appearance panel, you can really see just kind of like the extent of what's going on here, right? So we've got the warp, the arch warp happening over the whole thing. I feel like that is a little bit of a high arch. So if I go in here, I can just click on that, open this up, and we can see that it's at 18%. So I can dial that back down a little bit. Yeah, that's looking a little bit more. Actually, this is a terrible thing of mine, that I can't stand numbers being like off, or like a very like odd random number. So like I'm always changing things like this, for instance, to 10% instead of 11%. I don't know what that says about me, if anything, but I don't know. Let me know if you're also like that and have weird obsessions about that stuff. I'll deviate from it if I feel like another notch or two on whatever setting it is you know, better, particularly than wherever that neat number is. But usually I try and find a neat spot that is to my liking, and kind of bend what I think is best sometimes to meet that. I don't know, it's dumb. But anyways, we've got this guy here. Okay, so we got that arch fixed, and we brought that down a little bit. Next, I want to take a look at, this doesn't have an actual stroke on it, which you might be, if you're not familiar with this stuff, like I wasn't until recently, you might be wondering, okay, but I mean, this definitely has a stroke, so what's going on there? But it's actually another path with a fill that is offset. So we'll take a look at some of those in a second here. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip this top one for now, this fill that has some bas relief, and also not sure I've ever said that out loud. Don't know how that's actually pronounced, but it's got this kind of gradient fill right there. So we're gonna go ahead and skip that for a second. And let's look at one of these fills down here. So one of the ways that I was starting to figure some of this stuff out is just by coming in on some of these and hiding and showing some of these layers and seeing what was doing what. So if I hide this one here, this fill, it didn't appear to do anything. It's probably because it's over something else. Let me hide this one, and I bet we'll see a big difference here. Aha. So that depth, that kind of extrusion effect that is happening underneath, is that layer right there. So I'm guessing that if I hide that and hide this, there we go. There goes that. So now let's put those back for a second, and let's take a look at this guy here. So this is the one that was essentially on the top of the stack there, and which is basically kind of that dark stroke, right? So I want to take a look at that. So it's an offset path. I'll click on that, and we see that it's an 8 pixel offset from the core paths of the letters themselves. So it's pretty cool. What that's doing is it's essentially creating that 8 pixel stroke, but in reality, it's actually like a fill. So anytime you do an offset path, you set the amount of offset you want. You can go -2 and go inside the shape, right? So it's actually, instead of just being a stroke around the outside of it, it is actually another full filled path that is just that many pixels, or whatever your measurement is that you set, that much wide, you know, bigger or smaller from that main path that the shape is. So in this case, it's 8. Cool. Good to know. I'm going to go ahead and change that color though, which I can do by just clicking on that little swatch. And I'm going to grab blue the branding from Leander's brand. Their nice royal blue brand color. Cool. So now I've got that in there. Liking that so far. Okay, so then this guy here, this next fill that's creating this 3D effect is the same color. So let's make it our same color. Nice. Now, this royal blue color is a little bit light to really feel like a solid like drop shadow, drop shade color like this. So instead of changing that color to something darker, which I could just open this up here, go to like say, let's see, let's go ahead and turn on this HSB, and then I can just kind of drop that number. And that's something I could do. It's going to make that whole item, that layer, that darker blue color. Could do that. That's one way to set it apart. I'm going to undo that. And what I'm going to do instead is actually something that will give it much more of a 3D effect. And that is by applying a drop shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this little FX button down here. Open that up, go to Stylize, Drop Shadow. And that's gonna look a little crazy there for a second while I figure this out. I'm going to go to Hard Light. I'm going to change this to like 50%. And I'm going to make the X offset. This is going to determine how much it moves left and right, right? I'm going to make that just like 3. And I'll do the same thing with the Y offset, which is your vertical. And remember, it's an increase in like the position number, right? So if you go up on X offset, it's going to go to the right. If you go up on the Y offset, it's going to go down. So that's good to remember. And I'm going to turn the blur all the way down. Yeah, I'm going to turn it off for now. Okay. And I'm going to hit OK. Now, what I'm going to do is, because I had transform selected right there, it's putting the drop shadow underneath it. But if I go there and drag that above there, it puts it it's an order of operations in here, right? So instead of it being applied to the overall path that's created there, I think I might want to go up one more. No. Let's see. I need it there. And I think I need to drop the opacity on this. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Even go, yeah, let's go to 10%. Shoot. All right. So now we can see that what it's doing is it's applying that drop shadow effect on essentially each of those instances of that. So like the reason that it's creating this 3D shape here, I guess I should have probably talked about that first, is because of this transform effect. So if I open that up, this is like your standard Illustrator transform effect. Same thing you can do from the effects menu, but you can also do it in appearance, like on specific layers, on strokes, on fills, whatever. And so in this case, what it's doing is it's creating that sort of perspective drop shade right there. And so what we've got here is we've got a scale of 99.5%. That's going to make it shrink slightly horizontally. Vertical is still set the same. The vertical movement I've got set at 0.5 pixels. So with that, what that means is that each of these copies is going to move down just a half a pixel. And then it's currently at 18 copies. So if you're unfamiliar with the transform effect, cool thing you can do with this is you can really kind of create awesome patterns and arrays of a path and duplicate it, while making it, X amount smaller or larger in different directions, or moving it at a certain amount, rotating at a certain amount. It's really, really cool. But here it's basically just moved down a half pixel and scaled down horizontally 0.5% each time it's copied. And that goes on for 18 copies. What happens if I change that number of copies? Let's go ahead and bump that up. Hit OK. And I don't have this selected, do I? I don't. You ever do that? I do that all the time. Okay, so I've got it selected now. I'm back in here. So now if I change that number, we see it starting to get deeper, a further extrusion, if you will. And because it's reducing in width a 0.5% each time, it's gradually getting smaller, and it creates that awesome, perspective effect. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave it at 40 like that, and we can see that the drop shadow that I put on that is, I'm gonna click off of this so I can, let's see, we can see that it is creating all these neat, more accurate differences in color for all the shaded areas like that, which is what I wanted. Now, this does feel a little bit jagged here, so I'm going to try and fix that as well. And by, let's see, I'll come into transform here, and I'm going to change the distance that it is moving each time it's copied. I'm going to go ahead and go down to like 0.2 pixels. And I don't have it selected again, I'm pretty sure. Awesome. See, I said I do it all the time. If you ever feel like a goofball for doing things like that, you are not alone. Don't feel stupid. Happens to everybody. Okay, so now we can see that since I changed how much it was moving each time from 0.5 pixels to 0.2 pixels, it's like less than half of the distance that was going before. So now my 40 copies is creating much less of a distance, right? So I'm going to go ahead and bump that up a little more again. Cool, that works for me. Awesome. All right. Yeah, I like it. Now we're getting somewhere. So this gray up here that is filling these letters up top is not really on brand with their very blue and white, and then kind of accented sometimes with red color scheme. So I'm going to come back up here to one of those ones that we skipped over the first time. So up here in this fill, this is kind of like our main fill, it looks like. It doesn't really have any effects on it or anything. It's just this gray fill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and I'm just going to change that to white. And then I'm going to go back and select that so that it actually does it. Man, this is like high level repeated annoying mistakes. Okay, cool. So it kind of got rid of that lighting effect that's on there, but we'll take a look at why in a second. So I changed that to white. Now it's really starting to seem like something that's on brand, right? I love it. So I'm going to come back up here now to this fill, and this one has a gradient fill on it, which I do like. Let's go ahead and go to the gradients tab to see what we got going on. So it's at a 90-degree rotation, or angle, I guess. And then it's just like a light gray to white. I'm going to go ahead and come out of here. So our opacity setting is including an overlay blending mode, which is why it's disappearing once I change that main fill to white, because this gray to white gradient over white as an overlay is not going to show up at all. So I'm going to go ahead so we can see it again. I'm going to change it to normal, and it's actually quite dark actually on this in reality, I guess, whatever. So let's go ahead and let's see. What about a soft light? Does that do anything? That's kind of not really visible on white either. I could also go in and change that other fill from white to just like the very ever so lightest of grays. But I'm going to go ahead and just change what this guy is doing instead. So I'm going to come in here to the fill, and let's go ahead and start by making this gray a little lighter. And we'll keep going down here. And we can see that this is actually just kind of changing the way that is being affected by the filters. So let's come back out of here. I'm going to go into this fill here. And this is the way that I usually figure out how to do things like this, is just by playing around with things, because I don't know how everything works. So let's see, I've got that set to just like a Yeah, it does almost look metallic with this one. It's got this cool combination of the relief and the cutout effect going on, and we're gonna open those up and look at them too here in a second. But it does kind of give this like very glossy metallic look. And so, yeah, I mean, this is really cool starting point. I don't think ultimately that metallic looks are what we're going to go for our branding, but it's cool to just kind of see how some of this stuff works for sure. Let me change this opacity back to that overlay. Yeah, okay. So now, after I lightened that underlying gray fill, this guy is starting to look more subtle and more like a glossy white than a glossy or metallic gray, right? So it's kind of looking like just what light does with something that's white, creating these little like subtle shadows under here and all that good stuff. So cool, I like that. So now let's go ahead and see how it's actually doing that, because it's just a gradient fill that's like gray on the bottom and white on the top, right? So what is making it do that? So if I go in here and we see like offset path, this one is at -4. So what that's actually doing is it's taking the core shape of these letters, and we can see that it's bringing it in 4 pixels there, right? So instead of actually applying this gradient to the entirety of the letter, you can actually make it only apply to the interior of it, offset by however much you want. So in this case, I've got it offset by 4 pixels, and then it's using this bas relief. Somebody help me. I don't know. I didn't go to art school, so I don't know these terms, if that's even something you talk about there. But yeah, we can see that it's creating this kind of like almost like inflated look. And by the way, you can use 3D effects within these appearances, these graphic styles. So pretty cool. So this is giving it that kind of like inflated, rounded top look. Awesome. And then what cutout is doing is it's kind of working over that to kind of limit the levels of change that are going on with the colors there. So instead of being that really smooth, very neatly, more realistic, rounded gradient, it's kind of like breaking this down into however many levels you want it to be, and instead making it look a little bit more like a vector, a little bit glossier, right? Instead of kind of that diffused shading type of look. And we can come in and change some of this stuff. That's the edge fidelity, edge simplicity. That kind of like creates more of like almost like a low poly look, right? It's kind of turning some of those curves into lines. I'm going to go ahead and keep those nice and not simple. But then with levels, you can change how many levels it's going to go through, how many colors are going to be represented, right? So if I wanted to go like just really stark and just be like dark and light, I can do 2. I'm going to go ahead and put it back at 3, because that gives us both a shadow at the bottom as well as a highlight at the top, and then kind of that mid-range in the middle. I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So that really hasn't changed anything there, and I really like that. So now what I would like to do, though, is incorporate some of that red accent. And again, they've made it very clear to me that regardless of what their previous logo was and how very red it was, red is not one of their main colors. It is an accent. Blue and white are the main colors. So we're going to go ahead and honor that. And we're going to come in here and we're going to add just a little bit of red, right? And so how do we want to do that? We could do a lot of different ways. We could do a kind of a stroke around one of these. So it doesn't even have a stroke yet. So if we just go ahead and add a stroke, I don't know why that went way up there. Let's see. Can I bring you back? Come back here, buddy. I can make it bigger. Why can't I move it? It's like off screen. Anyway, I'm going to make it red. Okay. And that's not working either. Ah! Let's try this. I'm selected. I'm going to hit stroke. Okay. I don't know what that was about. Anyways, all right. So that gives me a red stroke. Not bad. It's a good start. So I can come in here, change the opacity. I can click on the stroke and change, your caps and your corners and everything. I can increase the stroke weight. Now, one interesting thing that I've noticed is that on type like this, it does not allow me to change whether the stroke is center on the path, outline, or inside, or outside or inside. I think you need to move that to like the characters. Let's see if that does anything. Didn't do anything yet. Let's see. Maybe it still doesn't allow that, but I know you can do it if like you've created outlines and stuff. If anybody knows why that does that or how to be able to do that, I've been able to do it if I have like a single letter, or if I've created outlines from them and I'm working with the actual paths themselves instead of the live text. But for whatever reason, it doesn't allow you to change whether the stroke is aligned inside, outside, or center when it's on this. So if anybody has any feedback or answers on that, I'm all ears. So by default, it's going to put it centered on that path. I don't actually want that in this case because it's coming inside of the letters too much. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back to no stroke. But it didn't look bad. It was cool. It was very easy to get that red accent in there, right? But instead, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this gray fill layer here. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to go ahead and from there just hit new fill, and then it's created one right on top of that. And if I am not mistaken, yes, it just does. It basically is the same as like dragging that fill onto the new item. Like, well, it says right here, duplicate selected item. So same thing as dragging on that on there. If you have that selected and hit a new fill, it just does a new one of the same thing, which is cool. So I'm going to leave that top one, that gray, and I'm going to actually change this one here. So I'm going to make this fill red. And we can't see it yet because it's the same exact size and shape and everything as that gray one, right? So it's hiding underneath there because, again, this is kind of a top-down order of operations sort of situation. And so what I'm going to do then instead is with that selected, I'm going to come down here to FX, go to Path and Offset. Whoa! Default is 10. It's big. So we don't want to quite do that. I'm going to drop this down. We'll drop it down to like 2. Okay, so now we've got kind of like that same effect happening as when I turned the stroke on and set it to red, but instead of it being on top essentially and only able to be set actually in line with the path instead of outside, this one is outside because it's an offset path, so it's just a 2, what did I say? Did I make it 2? Yeah, I made it 2 pixel offset. So it's just 2 pixels bigger on all sides than the core of the path itself, right? So now I've got a stroke that's sitting outside, whatever, but I want to go further. Instead of just having a basic stroke that just lives like right where the other one is, I want to actually give it a little bit of depth. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to also add a transform effect right there. All right, here's that handy transform panel that we were looking at earlier, right? So if I'm in here, I'm trying to think of how I want to do this. I think we're going to do it kind of similar to this one's, kind of match that perspective. I could just do like a straight drop shade that's kind of just at a 45-degree angle or something like that. I've done that on some of these as I've been playing around, but instead I'm going to try and match this sort of extruded look here. So like we had before, I'm going to break this link here. I'm going to make this 99.5% on the horizontal, leaving it the same vertically. And we can see that already has started to kind of shrink in the overall width of that. And then for vertical, we'll go ahead and do that same, oops, we'll do that same like 0.2 pixels. Okay, and that's going to make it move down 0.2 pixels each time it's copied. And then I will go ahead and up the copies. Oh, too much. Okay, so if I do like 5, that's pretty cool. I may need to make them move down a little bit more each time though. Let's see. So what if I do 0.5 there? Okay, so that's making them move down a little bit more. And we can kind of see that. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK so we can zoom in here and actually look at it. So now it's kind of creating that extruded effect. And when we zoom in real close, we see those like those jagged points there. And we can fix that a little bit by increasing or like by decreasing how much it's moving each time. So if I come back into here, let me don't highlight that. Okay, transform, that's right. So I can change this back down to 2. Okay, and I'll increase those copies. Too many. Okay, so I do want it to come down a little bit more than that, but not be quite so jagged. Maybe if I reduce this. Nope, that's going the wrong direction. Let me do less of a horizontal scale. So I'll do 99.8 on that guy. Okay, so now we can see that it's like the little jaggedy corners are substantially less there. So I'm going to go ahead and bump the copies back up a little bit. Yeah, that's looking better. Okay. Again, you just got to play with the things, like at least until you like have like a super deep understanding of how it all works. Sometimes you just got to like tweak and trial and error until you figure it out. So now one thing I'm noticing though is that it looks like it's a little bit offset from that blue background. So how can we fix that? Well, we can move some of this stuff, so there's other stuff down with some transforms. So if I want to move all of this here, let's see, we can do, this is like our front of the blue layer here. So let me add a transform onto him. Just transform. Okay. And so in this case, all I want to do is move it down a little bit. Okay. I'm not selected again. Can you believe it? I can. Okay. I'm selected. Now I'm going back in here and I'm going to transform. And I'm bringing this bad boy up. And then I am going to increase the vertical. Okay. It's kind of hard to see, but I can see a little bit here in the background. I think it's helpful when your underlying colors are different. I'm going to start with 5 here and see how that does. Okay. Kind of hard to tell with the other guy back there, but I'm thinking that's going to be a good starting point at least. Okay. So you can kind of stack these transforms too. It'll give you like a warning unless you tell it not to anymore, which is what I've done. But we can come in here to, so this is our little background drop shade guy. I can select, if I come down here and do this and click on this transform layer, that's what's giving us that repeating in depth, right? If I go ahead and create a new transform layer, I can move that down. And see, it's moving the whole thing. So if I do that to 5 as well, I'm already seeing that it is a little bit too much. And also, I think I want to like scale it down a little bit actually. So I'm going to go ahead and try 99. Try 98. again, kind of hard to see. Might need to do, I'm going to scale down the front facing one first. Let's see here. So I'll grab him and I'll go down with him. Okay. 97 maybe. Okay, there we go. And then I'll come back over to this one. Boom. Keeping all these straight is a little tricky sometimes too, for sure. Okay. Now we're looking a little bit closer to where I want to be. Okay. I'm thinking maybe 98. This is what it's about, man. You got to just like kind of play around with it and see what's going on. All right, 98 for him too. All right. So now, yeah, we're looking pretty good. Okay, I think we've also moved it down a little bit too much. So I'm going to go back in and bump those back up by decreasing the vertical. Maybe one more. Let's see what that looks like. And I'll come do the same thing in him. Yeah, okay, that's looking right. Cool. All right, so now it's kind of shrinking in there, but like with the perspective that we're doing, I feel like it's more accurate. Not always exactly what you want to prioritize over everything else is like the actual like spatial accuracy of everything, and you know there's ways that you want to kind of put overall aesthetic over that, but a pretty good approach that is definitely going to be an option for sure. Okay, so now let me go ahead and do one of the other brands I'm working on is Canyon Ridge Middle School. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new text layer here. And I'm going to go ahead and type out. Okay, I've made this a little big. Let's go ahead and make that a little smaller first. We'll say 200. That looks about right. Okay. And you can see my kerning is like totally untouched and unset here with my new little font here. Holy cow, that's bad. All right. But I can come in here, I'll click between each one, and I'm going to hold Option while I use my arrow keys. I'm just going to bring these into better alignment here. Tighten up some of these spaces. Yeah, go ahead and bring him a little closer even. But a lot faster than like going and like duplicating and dragging vectors around. Oops, that's actually a separate word. Let's go ahead and leave him spaced out. Okay. I'm just going to roughly eyeball this here for now, for our purposes. Bring him in a little bit more. Okay. A little bit more, a little bit more. Bring him in a smidge. Okay. Keyboard shortcuts, man. I tell you, gotta get them ingrained into your muscle memory. All right. So I want a lot of these to be nice and tight, these brands. So, all right, good enough for now. We'll start with that. So as you can see, we've just got this basic, simple black fill, no stroke, right? And what I want to do then is, let's see. So I've got my Canyon Ridge kind of like playground here that I've been working with. And I'll go ahead and bring this eagle head over. This is kind of where it's evolved to since last week. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just paste this guy in here. So I've got him to reference for colors and everything. And I'll bring this guy down here. Kind of bring everything back up. Okay. Already, since there's black in that logo, it already looks pretty cool, I think. So we're just going to make it even cooler. All right, so let's start with, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and hit Command-Shift-O to create those outlines. So now I've got the actual vector paths of those, and it's not live type anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I've got those selected. And let's start adding some appearance stuff. So we're just gonna start from scratch here. And actually what I'm gonna do is ungroup these as well. All right, I've got it selected. I'm gonna hit Command Shift G to ungroup. So that way I can have like what feels like the best control over these appearances. So, okay. So it's got the black fill there. Great. I'm going to go ahead and create a new fill. And I'm going to put it below that one. And I'm going to make it the same blue as my Canyon Ridge branding blue. And we can see that since I brought that over here, we've got those colors in there, that blue and that yellow. So I'm going to make that blue. And then I'm going to go ahead and offset that path like we did before. And it starts at 10 again. That's a little bit much for what I want to do here. We'll go ahead and, yeah, we'll start with 5. Cool. Okay. Okay, now we can see that with these overlapping paths, that's going to overlap those as well. So something to think about. I guess, so if we have these grouped, it's going to apply to the group. I kind of like that and prefer that in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and undo a few steps here, get those regrouped. And now I'm going to add a new fill, make it that blue. And actually, I'm kind of changing the whole thing. So we'll start with a black one. Okay. Get a new fill. Make the bottom one the blue. And then we'll add our offset effect. Okay. Oops, not that far. All right. Now we can see that it's done it around the entire group. So it's not going to be overlapping the letters and stuff. It's going to treat the overall outside of those paths together as a unit as one. So cool. That's what I'm wanting here. So I'm actually going to make this, I'll see. Let me select all those there. I'm going to make the inside white. Okay. And actually, I may want to kind of like use the same approach as the eagle mascot, where it's kind of like the main body of it is white with the black outline and then the blue stroke. So let's go ahead and change this one to black, right? And then we can create something behind all of that is blue. So it kind of like matches the sort of structure of the eagle head. Okay, so in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that one. And that back one, I'll make the blue. And then I'm going to change that offset to be bigger. Yeah. Okay, so we'll start with 10. So that's the inner offset was 5. This one's 10, so it's the same ultimately as the black for how far it's coming out of there. Looking pretty cool so far. I think the blue could stand to be a little bit bigger. Actually, I think they both probably could. So let's go ahead and change the offset of that black. We'll go up to like 7. And then the offset of, and I don't have it selected. Oh, you guys, I tell you. Some people just aren't cut out for doing things in front of people. I'm not one of them, but some people might not be. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that again. Make that 7. Bam. And we'll do the blue offset as well. We'll make him, let's go ahead and take him all the way up to 20. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Oop, I didn't go to 20. Boom, there we go. Okay. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think the blue is too big now. Let's change it. We can always change it. This is the cool thing about this is it's all non-destructive and it's all tweakable after the fact. I'm not actually offsetting all these paths and like needing to delete those offset path layers and all that. I'm like just making it so that I can change it, which is a big part of this that I wish I had known sooner, because that is super handy and a lot better of a way to work for being able to easily edit after the fact, which is something that, as you can see, happens all the time. It's a must. Okay, so that's starting to look pretty cool. I'm liking that. Now I think we want to put in middle school underneath this. So let's go ahead, and what I might actually do is just do regular Futura under there as like a simpler subtext kind of thing, right? So I'll go ahead and start this here. I'm going to center it, and I'm just going to get Futura PT. We'll do I'll do Demi. Okay. And my sizing is all crazy right now. We'll change that because of how terribly my quickly slapped together font is. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and just type in middle school here. Middle school. Okay, I don't have condensed. I want condensed because that's what I'm basing my other font off of. Okay, I gotta select a different one. Future available on Adobe fonts, the best. Condensed, that's what I want. And we'll go ahead and do bold. Boom. Okay. So now that is actually what my customized font is based on. So it'll match and look neat, but in the smaller size, we won't lose any of our clarity with those little notches and stuff. So, okay. So I've got that guy there. So I like to start with optical tracking on here. Okay, or optical kerning on everything. Okay, so then I'm gonna go ahead and create those outlines there. All right, and now I'm gonna go ahead and fill my yellow, and we'll make one underneath that. That is black. Okay, and then I'm going to offset that as well. Make that a little bigger. Let's see, it's starting at 10 again. I don't hate that. Okay, let's keep it there. All right, and then maybe I will bring these over a little bit so there's not so much of a gap there. Select all of those. Kind of recenter them a little bit. Okay, so now I think we need a little bit of a warp, don't you? Let's go ahead and select this guy, and I'm just gonna go ahead and click this group, this top group thing here, and I'm gonna go to warp, and let's do we want to do arch or arc? Let's do arch. Okay, so that's at 10. Actually, you know what? I want to do arc lower and go the other way to maybe about 10 the other direction. Yeah, 11 is not going to cut it. It's too weird of a number. Okay, and then maybe one thing we can do too is to kind of give it a little bit of that, like, that gravity, that like athletic branding look here. We can kind of do that vertical distortion too to kind of make it look like it's laid back a little bit, right? All right, so I like that. And I definitely, one thing I noticed was that I wanted that middle school to be underneath the other one. So now if I put that up there, like that, now we're starting to see some fun things here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and size all of this up a bit. Like so. Yeah, now we're talking. What do you guys think? I've got a lot of work to do still with the font itself, obviously, before that is ready for anybody else to look at, let alone use themselves. But we're off to a pretty good start here, and we're basing this on something, on a font that is going to live in a lot of places already, and these school brands are going to need to exist alongside district branding as well, which, like I said, includes Futura as well. So it's going to do a really good job of kind of like getting us almost all the way there as far as really fitting the same vibe and stuff anytime that those things need to live together. And it also just creates a very unique and custom spin on something that just anybody could have, right? Anytime you're doing branding, it's great to have a really custom logo type aspect of it, so that not just anybody with access to a particular font can do the exact same thing, or or so on. So yeah, that's going to be kind of the approach that we take from there, and we'll see that grow. Next week, we're going to look at a little bit more of some of the other mascots that I'm working on, and how I'm incorporating some of the feedback from the other schools to kind of tweak those and improve them, and how I'm dealing with getting some of that feedback from those individual campuses and working in their thoughts and their requests into this kind of overall visual language that I'm looking to stick within. So it's proven to be a little bit challenging, but everybody's been awesome to work with so far. So it's been going really good. So be sure to tune in next week, and we'll look at those things there. Same time next week. We're back on the Wednesday flow. So Wednesday, 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Pacific, and I'll be here then. Catch you guys later.